Okay, now that we know what substitution is, let's jump into actually using it. So this says, evaluate the following expressions when x equals 3, y equals 7, and c equals 2. So that's what we're going to use for these particular ones. Now those could change in the future. That's what we're going to use for these. So the very first step is to substitute in the numbers that you know. So when I read this, because you really want to make sure you substitute these in correctly, this is really 3 times x. So when we read 3x, that really means 3 times x, like whatever x is. And then minus y. So when I substitute in, x is 3, so I'm really going to put 3 times 3, and you can do that with the asterisk if you want, the dot. You can put parentheses around the 3, kind of like in the example in your substitution section of your notes. Whatever you need to do in order to show multiplication. You actually can use the x symbol, but I would caution you to not use that too often because it's hard to tell, is it the x like the variable or x like the multiplication? So try and use another method to keep yourself organized, okay? And then I also substituted 7 in for y because that's what I'm getting from over here. So now this just becomes a numerical expression and we just solve using order of operations. So I don't have parentheses, I don't have exponents, but I do have multiplication, so we're going to do that first. So we do 3 times 3 is 9, and notice how I rewrite the problem. So I got 9 minus 7. That's the last part, so my answer is 2. And notice how I put a box around it. You can circle it, do something to draw attention to it. Okay, so let's try another one. That was fairly easy. Let's dive into one just a little harder. Okay, this one has x squared. Okay, so remember that's the number times itself, however many times the variable says, or I'm sorry, the power says. And then we got plus 5y, so that's really 5 times y. Notice how over here when I did the 3 times 3, I didn't just substitute the 3 in and write 33. That was a big difference. That's why I put that multiplication symbol in. You have to remember that it's the number times the variable, so that means it's the number times whatever you're substituting in for that variable. Okay, so x is 3, so we're going to put 3 squared, and then we're dealing with just y, so we're going to use 7, so I'm going to have 3 squared, or 3 to the second power, plus 5 times 7. Okay, notice I didn't try and solve anything yet, just substitute the numbers in, that's it. Now I can solve using order of operations, so we're going to do these exponents first, and remember this is 3 times 3 to get 9, and I'm rewriting the rest of the problem because we have not done any of that yet. So I've got 9 plus 5 times 7. I'm going to do the multiplication first. So I'm going to get 5 times 7. So we get 9 plus 35. And that's the last part. So we end up with 44. And again, box or circle your answer, please. Okay? And notice we're doing the same idea that we did with order of operations. The only new step is that substitution piece where we take the numbers that they're telling us for those variables and then substitute them in and then solve. Let's try just 2 more. Okay? So, and make sure you're following along just like you have been, okay? Don't miss anything. If you need to go back and rewind, feel free. Okay, so we got c cubed, or c to the third, plus 4 times y, or 4y. So c is 2, so I'm going to substitute 2 in for c, and then y is 7. So we're going to have our expression looking like this, 2 to the third, plus 4 times 7. Again, this means multiplication when they're next to each other, so you need to write multiplication when you do it, when you substitute. All right, I'm doing the power first. Remember, this is 2 times 2 times 2 to get 8. So I got 8 plus 4 times 7. I'm going to do that multiplication. So 4 times 7 to get 28. 8 plus 28 to get 36. And of course, if you need to do any work off to the side, feel free. It's okay if you don't have to do it in your head. You don't need to do it that way. Okay, but I did box or circle my answer. Okay. All right, one more to practice this, and then you're going to get some more practice on your own. All right, so we've got c on the outside of the parentheses here, but we know that means multiplication. So that really means c times the difference of 3y and x, or 3 times y minus x. Okay, so notice how c is being multiplied to everything in the parentheses. So we're going to substitute 2 in for c, 7 in for y, and 3 in for x. So that's my first step. Notice how I did my multiplication here. And with order of operations, we do everything in parentheses first. So when I look in the parentheses, I've got multiplication, I've got subtraction. We're going to do multiplication first because that comes before subtraction. So we end up with 2 times the difference of 21 and 3. So when we subtract 21 and 3, we get 18. And you can either keep these parentheses or you could write 2 times 18 with using one of our symbols. But regardless, this means 2 times 18 because that number is next to the parentheses, so that means multiplication. So 2 times 18, oh looky there, we got 36 again. That was a coincidence. Okay, but again, we box or circle our answers. Okay? Again, if you need to go back and look at anything, feel free.